Welcome to our show. This podcast is devoted to the history, installation, and best practices of fluid-applied reinforced roofing. I'm your host, Chris Ford, and this is 50 years of commercial roof restorations. Hey guys, so we're here with Tim Ford still with Western Colloid, talking about some of the best practices for maximizing your efficiency when putting down one of our roof systems. Tim, I wanted to focus on, we talk about having a tool bag, or I call it a tackle box sometimes, right? Why do you think that is so valuable?
Well, you want to have the tools that you need to hook your pump up and take your hoses apart at the end of the day. So, a tool bag, a toolbox. And in that toolbox, you have all your basic tools, crescent wrenches, pipe wrenches, hammer, of course, some scissors, a couple of knives, just some basic roofing tools, but you're going to use them on the ground a lot. They come in handy for different things that you're doing. So, also in that tool bag is we want to have our extra parts, extra fittings, extra valves, half-inch ball valves for your spray wand.
Adapters for the toes.
Oh yeah, toed adapters, yeah.
And then I would say too, just miscellaneous like pipe fittings. Some of the oddball stuff, Tim.
Some of the oddball stuff would be just your extra pipe fittings, some 3/4 inch caps and plugs, some half-inch caps and plugs, everything's 1/2 inch and 3/4 pretty much that we use or recommend. So those are the sizes. Some reducers, 3/4 to 1/2. You want to have some swivels. You want to have your cam lock fittings, caps and plugs. You want to have your toed adapter. That's a 2-inch pipe by 2-inch male fitting.
So obviously the tools, also, I think having a tool bag on the roof and on the ground, like you said, you need it in both places. How often have you had to yell up, like, hey, throw me down the crescent wrench? Because you only got two on the job, hook up the wand, and the other guy's trying to hook up down on the ground, and it's like they're sharing wrenches. Just have spares.
Yes, yeah, it's important, yeah, for sure. So not that much money, like he said. I mean, you got your tools that you keep on the ground for your pump guy that's setting everything up, and then guys up on the roof also have tools.
On that one, I want to jump into. So those totes, they come primarily pipe thread. Most everything that we do is pipe thread, but every once in a while it's not. It's whatever that wide thread is. And I'll tell you from both of our experiences, you end up with a wide thread tote delivered to you, which can happen. Those adapters aren't easy to find.
No, they're not. And we try, again, mistakes are made by us even, but we try to send out an adapter if it does have that extra large thread. I believe it's a food service of some sort of thread. It's just not a common adapter to run down to the local hydraulic hose place and replace. It's pretty much a special order.
Yeah, and all of this stuff, you guys, is it may seem small, it may seem trivial. You might not need it today at all. But the whole point of this is us in the trades industries. If you work in a crew, there's generally a foreman, and when something happens, pipe breaks, anything, man, equipment busts, it could be anything, right? That stops production for whatever reason. The tile saw stopped working. Okay, well now you have a crew of guys, and they still expect to be paid for the day while they're on the job. Well, one guy generally runs to your hydraulic hose place, or he runs to Home Depot, and he gets whatever he needs to get back to work. The broom broke, the handle broke. Oh, we don't have a spare. Well, now you have 5 guys. One's ran to Home Depot, but the other 4 guys aren't going to just automatically transition into max production. They're not going to go grab buckets of mastic right away and get started. They're going to stand around. And that's all dead money. That's all wasted labor. Where if you just have a spare broom in the truck, or you have this spare part, connections break on hoses sometimes. Ball valves go out all the time on wands. If you don't have a spare ball valve on the job, well, I can't continue until I get one. Well, now I got to drive, 20 minutes to the hardware store. I got to go through line and drive back and climb back up the ladder. Now an hour and 15's gone by. Times 5 dudes, and so you've just lost 5 hours worth of labor because you didn't have a $7 part sitting on the job. It's all about cost. So I don't want to have an extra $20,000 pump in case mine breaks, right? But what we're talking about are $2 pieces, $3 pieces, you know what I mean? We're talking about probably altogether, even with the wrenches and everything, you're talking a couple $100. So to be able to supply spares of those things, invest the extra $200 or so into, you know, a tool bag full of extras that I may or may not need on a daily basis, but they're here, they're on the job. You can keep them in a bag. I just, man, the value in that.
Yeah, it's priceless. It really is, because let's face it, on the job, labor, that's what makes or breaks you. You put down more squares, the company makes more money. That's how you can get a raise. So kind of important to do your part in the process. Well, and that's how the company owner is going to make more money, is by taking care of his guys. If he's got some good guys, try to keep them.
Well, and I think people have become more aware of that in today's age as well. You know, I mean, you know, good labor is a challenge for all right now, and I think more and more people in the trades industry understand that, hey, if I got some good guys, I'm gonna take care of. Cannot afford to lose this guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of wasted money in retraining another guy and getting the guy to. When we put down our systems, it's a team, and your guys got to get along and work together. Or it's just not productive.
Yeah, I mean, they don't gotta love each other, man.
No, but they're getting paid to do a job,
yes.
and the job that we're doing and putting down our systems, teamwork is really, really important.
Yeah,
everybody's
really
got to work together.
Hey, I want to circle back. We talk a lot about hoses and the different types of hoses. Can we spend a little time on the hoses themselves and what we use, why we use them? And just kind of run me through both the emulsion setup and then the acrylic setup as well.
Sure. So we'll start with the emulsion. So typically, I set all my pumps up with 500 feet of hydraulic hose. So I would run 400 feet of 3/4 inch at about 1200 psi. And then I would have what I called my whip hose, and that was a 1/2 inch, 100-foot section, again the 1200 psi, and then that runs to my gun, to my wand. That's where that ball valve is. We kind of recommend a setup to guys. There's just other products out there. That's kind of on you, but we'll guide you along with our knowledge and recommend some stuff to you. But we kind of like a setup we've developed, and it's a aluminum spray wand and a 1/2 inch ball valve and a couple of 1/4 inch pipe fittings, and that's how we spray our product out onto the roof. So that's your emulsion setup, and then that transfer hose we talked about for hooking up to your tow to your tank.
That three quarter inch hose is basically to maintain pressure, right, and to get as much product as you possibly can, as far as you can.
Correct.
And then reducing down to the whip. What are some of the benefits of reducing down to half?
So it's just a lot less wear and tear on whoever the spray guy is, and the hose puller for that matter. It's just a lot easier to move around a 1/2 inch piece of hose than it is a 3/4. At 3/4 inch hose, now mind you, I've sprayed out of a lot of 3/4 inch hose back in the day, and it on your arm and your elbow, it's some work.
Yeah,
you definitely feel it. So then going to a 1/2 inch whip hose, you're like, oh wow, I'm in heaven.
yeah.
So it's just easier. It's easier to throw that hose around. You're going around stuff, got to go over stuff. A couple guys just grabbing that 1/2 inch. It's a lot easier to move across the roof.
I think sometimes the human element is forgotten, and some of the conditions that these crews are working in, it can be really hot, and they may start when it's a little cooler in the morning, but as the day wears on, you get tired. When guys get tired, they get sloppy.
Yeah.
And making it as easy on them as possible. That's where that swivel, man. Having a swivel on the end of the wand. I don't know how the hose magically gets a kink in it. It just happens like magic. It gets a little quarter turn. Well, you can feel that quarter turn in your shoulder, in your elbow, and you're fighting it all day. You put a swivel on the end of that thing, and now it's a nice, easy walk, all throughout the day.
Well, again, and that goes back to your labor. the easier you make it on your crew to put down that roof system, the more production you're going to get out of them. And it's all about getting those squares down to cut down your labor costs. So whatever you can do to make it easier on the crew to apply that system, it's in the company's best interest.
I know it helps to keep like AC units clean, and you know, we'll teach to spray away from the edge of the roof, spray away from the AC unit, spray away from skylights, on and on and on, right? I mean, hopefully you've wrapped these things with plastic and protected them in that manner, but being able to direct the spray, because there is overspray on both, right? So
well, we don't call it spray with our setup for emulsion. We have more of a splatter. And I'm not worried about the splatter traveling across the roof like I am with overspray. Now, I will have overspray when I work with acrylic, but emulsion, I don't have the fine particles of what we get from high pressure that I would call overspray. So it's more of a splatter, but we still got to control that splatter in certain instances.
yeah, and I know it goes farther than you think.
Yeah.
So that's our emulsion hose is going to come 3/4 off the pump, as much as you know
Whatever
Yeah.
you need to run for your job.
And hey, I want to point out too. I get this question quite a bit. You know, we did a building that was 189 feet tall, and then we had to run about 300 feet across the roof to hit the corner as well. So you're welcome to reach out to us. We have some knowledge. We're not pump guys by any means, okay? So, but we do know pump guys, and if you're trying to get some information on, hey man, I got to try and reach this. Can I reach it from this setup? Give us a call, and we'll be happy to talk through it or put you in contact with someone we know is very knowledgeable about what these Graco pumps and these lower ends are capable of doing. You know, you need as much hose as you need. You know, if you don't need all 500 feet for this job, you can pull some links out and hook up, you know, with the 250 you need or whatever. But yeah, so the emulsion's going to come 3/4 off the pump, run till whatever till you get to the last 100.
Yeah.
And then we're going to hook up 1/2 inch to that last 100, just so it's easier to move around with. For the most part, that 3/4 is going to stay in place all day. We're just going to work back and forth. A couple of times throughout the day, you might have to move the 3/4 a little bit, you know, up 50 feet or something. And then you're just going to work back and forth.
Yeah.
Down to a live swivel. And then onto that live swivel, in some way, we're going to hook up a ball valve.
So I think what would be important, guys, to get across right now would be, so you can buy an aftermarket live swivel and put on your hose. What's best and cheaper for you is order your 1/2 inch hose with a live swivel. Then you have the swivel, it's clamped on at that point.
By your hose supplier.
By your hose supplier. You just tell him you want a working live swivel, and now you've got a live swivel on that hose. You already got the hose. There's an aftermarket live swivel you can put on, but it's much cheaper to get it put on the hose.
Well, and I know those prices range quite a bit.
Yeah,
I paid $130 and I paid $26. So
yeah. It just kind of depends where you're at, what's available.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, so let's transition to the acrylic then. So what would that look like coming off the pump?
So with the acrylic, I run all 1/2 inch hose. Now, when we're spraying with acrylic, we're high pressure. This is 4,000 psi. So you gotta be careful, and it's kind of why I tell you 2 different hose setups. One for emulsion, which is kind of what we call low pressure, and another's completely different setup for acrylic because that's high pressure. I've seen it, and it can turn into a big problem on a job site when guys have interchanged hoses on the wrong lower ends. So they were using their emulsion low pressure on a high pressure system. You're gonna get somebody hurt doing that. So
yeah.
It's the only way to stay safe, 2 different setups. That way you take out the confusion.
Yeah.
So,
well, not to mention you don't want to cross mingle the products and stuff. And
correct.
I don't care if you've run water through it or whatever. It's just better to have 2 separate setups.
You know, because you got to think about the safety part of it, because a high pressure injection into a human being is dangerous.
Yeah, 4,000 will do that for sure.
Yeah, it'll cut right into you. Inject a fluid into you. If it does happen, get your ass to the hospital right away.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen. I've been involved in it a couple of times.
I know
over
there's
the
been
years.
amputation that you've witnessed.
Yeah,
Because
so
of,
it's ultra important. So
So, and then let's follow that line all the way to the end. Again, we're going to have a live swivel on the end. It's all going to be 4,000 psi minimum.
Yeah.
Now we get to the end. Let's talk about the wand. Because the wand is important.
Now this is a totally different type of a spray gun. Again, this is a high pressure. I recommend the Graco HD pole gun. It's more of a spray wand type with a trigger. I just like the feel of it. It's basically the same feel as the wand I use for putting down my emulsion, only I've got a different type of a trigger. On the emulsion, I'm opening a ball valve. On this one, I've got a trigger that I hold open the whole time. But I still have a T-handle, gives me the flexibility to move that wand around and put coating in different areas as needed across the road.
I've seen guys use straight poles. I've seen guys with the 45 on the end. I mean, again,
there's a lot of different things out there.
This is personal preference.
Yeah, and it's whatever's, yeah, I mean, that's, again, this goes down to production. Whatever you guys are most comfortable with.
Yeah.
I don't like the smaller ones because you got to be bent over.
Well, and this is another thing you bring up. You bring up a good point, because not all humans are created equal. A 6'7" guy versus a 5'2" guy, they're going to want a different setup.
Yeah.
And what you need to do as a contractor is equip your. I mean, man, even to the brooms, Tim. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I said, a 5'6", 5'7" dude versus a 6'7" dude, they want a different size pole. You know what I mean? They don't want to be interchanging the same equipment. Equip your guys with what they need as individuals to be most productive. And the wand is the same way. Get him the wand that feels best in his hand. He's going to be doing this for 6-8 hours a day. Give him equipment that works for his body.
Yeah. That you're going to get the most out of them with.
Yep.
Again, that's what's going to get you more production on the roof.
I see that all the time where you try to take the square peg and put it in the round hole, and it's like, hey, this is the equipment you have. Well, man, that was for John. He doesn't work here anymore.
And sometimes, hey, you got to make do with what you have, but you know that you're going to grow and change accordingly.
Yeah.
So it's realizing, okay, hey, I'm going to use this right now. We're going to get through this, but we know we're going to make a change, and we're going to get better by using other things.
Next job, we're going to use this instead.
Yeah,
things like that.
So it's learning, and that's the kind of stuff that our techs at Western Colloid want to come out to your job site and help you with. Mm-hmm. We can cut out a lot of the learning curve with a lot of the experience we have, and show you some stuff. It's up to you to make the choice, but we'll show you and present you with different ideas what can be most productive for you.
So, Tim, before we run out of time here, I get asked this a lot, and I was hoping you could kind of dive into the tips and the various tips and where you would use them.
Okay, so the tips come into play with acrylic coatings, and again, I'm all about Graco, so all my tips are Graco tips. The most common tip that I recommend to most guys is a 855. So that 855 is your fan width and then the size of your actual opening. It's called an orifice. So the bigger the number, the last two numbers, like the 55, that's going to let out more coating. So, for example, I might change that 855 to a 867 for acrylic if I was putting down ply sheet.
Like in the valleys.
In the valleys, or I was doing an all acrylic system. It's about getting those gallons out to embed the polyester in. So I want to get as much acrylic out as possible for that ply. But I can't use that same tip for putting my top coat on. It's letting out too much paint. So that's where I tell guys, on most jobs, 855 is my tip. I get a nice big wide open, I'll bump it up to an 861 because it's just about a nice fan and I'm just walking back and forth. I get a real busy roof with a lot of stuff on it. Might drop down to, say, a 847. So it just kind of depends on your roof, and what you have on that roof helps you choose what size tip you want to spray. One thing to get across there, guys, you'll go to your little paint store or your Home Depot or Lowe's, and they have a Graco section, but they don't carry the roof tips, the spray tips that we need for on the roof. They got the tips for painting the house or painting inside. You need to go to a Graco distributor to get the right size
Usually the
tips.
same place that provides your hoses and transfer hoses and your hydraulic hoses. A lot of times will have that.
Yeah, you typically, yeah. I mean, we have a master Graco distributor that we recommend, but that's here in Southern California. You can find a Graco dealer, closer to where you live.
Well, and again, you can reach out to us.
We'll
Most
help
of the
you.
stuff, most people buy stuff online anyway. So if you just plan ahead, if you just, again, the tips are kind of expensive. I understand, if you don't have the money to stockpile a bunch of them, but have a couple and plan ahead. Order them ahead of time. And if you want a recommendation from us, we can recommend a place that could ship them to you. But have these things on hand and ready for prior to the roof getting put on. Yeah,
And I mean, the other thing that comes into play is your weather. Real windy day. You might, all right, it's too windy. I can't use this. I can't use this big tip because the wind's going to blow my pattern all over the place. But I can get down to a smaller tip. Can still get some spray down. I'm not as productive, but I don't have to shut down for the day. So
right.
you want to, again, like we talk about everything, you want to be prepared to keep roofing as long as you can.
Okay. Hey, thank you, Tim.
All right.
Thanks to everyone for listening and watching. For more information, you can always visit us at westerncolloid.com. Please subscribe to our podcast. There'll be more information and great tips to come.